guys. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 19th Oxford and Cambridge Society Malaysia English Language Event 2021. My name is Tracy, and just to let you know, I am the kind of MC who really enjoys interacting with the crowd. Let me know in the chat box if you can hear me now, okay? Let me know a yes or a no. Is it loud and clear, guys? All right, yes, thank you very much for all the responses. I really appreciate it. Right, thank you so much. Another question from me, okay? Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Tracy and I am your MC of the day. Next question that I have for all of you here, which is, since you guys are up early on a Saturday morning, let us know how you're feeling right now by voting in the poll. Yes. Are you excited? Are you curious to know what's happening soon? Or are you hungry and because you haven't had any breakfast? Let us know in the chat box as well. Okay, I can see that most of you are curious to know what's happening soon. Yes, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, and the poll. Oh, this is not early, Prof. Stephen. Okay, guys. Yes, the poll has ended. Thank you very much for all the votes. You can see that 49% of all of you are very curious to know what's happening soon. All right, let's not waste more time and move on to the next slide, which is this one. This is the program of the day, just to inform all of you. At 10:15 later, we'll be going through a talk conducted by Mr. Daniel Rahman on effective writing skills. Followed by 11:20 later, there will be another talk conducted by Professor Abi Virakumarasivam on effective oral communication skills. Each session will go on for 40 minutes, followed by 20 minutes Q&A session. The event will officially end at 12:30. Okay. Moving on to my next slide, which is gentle reminders to all of you here. First things first, no recording is allowed. However, you may feel free to take a screenshot of important points you wish to save. Don't be shy, guys. Participate in our Q&A. Ask any questions you wish to clarify in Slido platform later, which I will share how to go about it, okay? Ensure your mic remains on mute while the speaker is talking. And last but not least, enjoy, have fun learning with this, guys. So next up, this is the Slido platform that I mentioned just now. There will be a link posted in the chat box, and during the talk, whenever you have questions, you may feel free to actually post up your questions in this platform. So I will have, yes, thank you, Vivian, for posting the link. So yes, that's the link, or you can scan the QR code there as well for you to post up the question. All right, another question for all of you here. Since, before I move on to the next slide, just a question to get to know more about you guys. Since all of you are at home most of the time, okay, let us know if you managed to pick up any new hobbies. For me, for example, my new hobby is actually watercolor painting. What about you guys? Let us know in the chat box, guys. Anyone want to tell me? No hobbies? Reading, I see. Oh, dancing. Debating, wow, okay. All right, it's really great to see all of you have been picking new hobbies. Guitar, I see, that's really great to hear from all of you. Thank you very much. Okay, before we kickstart the session, we will have Miss Margaret Hall here, who is the organizing chairperson of the 19th Oxford and Cambridge Society Malaysia English Language Event. She'll be here to have her welcome speech to all of you here. So over to you, Miss Margaret.
Thank you, Tracy. I hope you can all hear me clearly.
Yes, loud and clear.
Excellent. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Oxford and Cambridge Society of Malaysia's 19th Annual English Language Event 2021. We have over 400 Almost 3, 4 and 5 students from all over Malaysia registered for today's event, and I see we have about 300 logged on already and eager to listen. Also with us are our 2 Oxford and Cambridge alumni speakers and our wonderful support team from Sunway. As I did last year, I'm joining you all from England, where it is just after 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm looking forward to being back in Malaysia once travel restrictions become easier. I hope that you're all keeping well, safe, and coping in the current lockdown. So thank you for being with us today. Thank you to our 2 speakers, Professor Abi and Mr. Daniel Rahman. Professor Abi is an award-winning public speaker, while Mr. Daniel is recognized all across Malaysia from his regular newspaper articles. Both are veteran speakers at this event. Not to be forgotten are the team of Sunway facilitators who have worked so hard to make today's proceedings come together. I hope that you all enjoy your morning and come away with increased confidence in how to communicate effectively, both on the page and when speaking. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Miss Margaret. All right, from her speech, we do know that it's actually 3 a.m. in the UK. Why not let's show her our warmth in the chat box. Hello there. So show some support. Yes, thank you very much, guys. All right. Now would like to finally invite our first speaker of the day, Mr. Daniel Rahman, to share on the topic effective writing skills. Daniel is a law graduate with master's degree from University of Oxford. One of his current roles is to oversee all his communications engagements as a press secretary to Malaysia's finance minister. He is also a columnist for the Star newspaper since 2014, having written over 80 articles on a variety of topics, including education and governance. Lastly, not to forget, Daniel is also the director in the office of the CEO with Sunway Education Group. Hello there, Daniel. Now, are you there?
Yes. Hello, Tracy. I'm here.
Hello. Okay, so what? And then from the introduction, we got to know that you have completed your master's in University of Oxford, actually. So do you mind sharing how was your experience with this elite institution with all of us here?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, good morning, everyone. And I hope everyone's well at home, staying safe, complying with the SOPs. To answer your question, Tracy, it was quite an amazing experience, socially, educationally as well. One thing that's wonderful about the University of Oxford is they've got over 100 libraries, so you can read in a different place almost every day, called the board. It was very intense, of course, academically, but I think what was the best of all was actually, the coming together of students from all over the world, where, we could share experiences, learn from each other. And I think what makes an institution, the heart of the institution are its students, and Oxford definitely delivers in terms of that diversity and friendship.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for sharing. So now, Daniel, the floor is all yours. You may take over now.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. What time? Yeah, it's the morning. Sorry, always the starting is awkward, isn't it? I hope everybody's well at home. What I usually do also is I like to ask where all of you are from. So if you can put in the box, are you from KL, Selangor, or outside, or from a different state, Sabah, Sarawak? Just feel free to put it there. Oh, whoa, I just came up big on the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my slides. And today's session is going to be interactive. So what I mean by this is it'll be a mixture of me sharing how to write effectively, but also I would like all of you at home to be ready to do some activities. Don't worry, they'll be very easy. And sometimes we'll use the chat box and sometimes we won't. But what's important is I think at the end of the session, all of you would have picked up a few more skills and thoughts on how to write better. At the end of the day, dear participants, it's really about practice and all. And yeah, let's get right into it. I'm not going to accidentally say too much at this point.
Let's get started.
Right. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, I also see some chats coming in on the side. What I'll do is I'll put the chat box on the side as well. Some Sarawak, Selangor, Perak, Kedah. Very excited. Kedah, Selangor, Kedah. That's all from Kedah. Johor. Okay, cool. Nice to know that everyone's from all around. So let's start. What are your fears when it comes to writing? And I'll give you 1 minute to list down as many as you can think of. Are you ready? And go.
Sorry, Daniel, I'm afraid that you may need to put your slides on full screen.
Oh, are they not on full screen?
No, it's not.
Oh, I think you spotlighted me. Maybe if I remove my spotlight, what happens now?
Nothing still.
Oh, that's odd. Okay.
Looking at your PowerPoint deck.
Oh, that's a bit odd.
Yeah.
Stop sharing.
Yeah, maybe you can try again.
Yes. Okay. Let's try again.
Sure.
Okay, so you can see my deck, right?
Hang on, it's still loading now. Yeah, I can. I'm looking at your deck now.
Okay, and now I've gone full screen.
You need to change your PowerPoint settings, Daniel, up the top there. Stephen here.
When you say at the top,
okay.
Stephen.
I can see it now. It's on full screen now. So what are your fears when it comes to writing? No. Hang on. Maybe you may need to click the full screen again, Daniel. Yeah.
Yep. So clicking on full screen. Okay. So on mine, it's full screen.
Go to slideshow, Daniel, up the top.
Sorry, my screen doesn't have anything on top, so let me just.
Okay, no worries. By the way, there are a lot of responses in the chat box. Wow.
Screen, black screen, white screen. No pointer options. No, this is weird. This has never happened before. Slideshow. Okay. Let me try.
Now it's on. Yeah. Hang on. It was on full screen just now, and then.
Oh, it was. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. How's it now?
Mm-hmm.
Tracy, how's it now?
I can still see your deck.
That's weird.
The entire deck.
Okay, so we've got.
Maybe
Would
it's
you like
okay
me to share. I can share the slide.
Yeah, let me try one more time.
Yeah, sure.
Present to view. Okay, let me just kill that. I think that might be better. Okay, how's it now? It's this technology. I don't know why this is happening though. It's never happened.
No. Naomi, what about your side? Are you looking at full screen or the whole deck?
It was not full screen. Maybe I'll share for Daniel. Wait, let's see whether this time it works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, full screen now. All right.
Okay, full screen, yeah?
Yes, full
you.
screen.
Technology, my gosh. They got scared when Naomi said she step in.
Yeah.
Okay, so dear participants, dear students, let me have a look at what you've written in chat. Not much ideas for writing, not good linking words, lack of ideas, cliche sentences, grammar ideas mistake, not organizing the essay, writing too much on the point, boring sentences, grammar and organization. Okay, cool. Set up slide. Oh wait, someone was saying set up slideshow and browse in an individual window. I think that was for my technical error. So I think a lot of the feedback, many of it is probably is valid, right? And this includes, some of you could have writer's block. You have no idea what to write. What if nobody likes my writing, right? That's that fear that it's not engaging. What if I say something stupid, silly, or wrong? My vocabulary isn't strong, and we saw a few of that. I have bad grammar, saw that too. Or it takes too long to write, start now, it'll take me a day to write, etc. And as I said earlier, you can feel free. So I think all of us have many different types of fears. And that's very common. And I'll be sharing, and I've written, as Tracy shared, over 80 articles. And till today, I still have some of these fears, like what if people don't like my writing? What if I can't write? And my writer's block for me can be something that's challenging. So hopefully today we'll try to overcome it together. So it's okay, everybody has fears, right? And so let me share with you how I manage and overcome it. I believe everybody can write, regardless. It's really funny because the speaker after me, Prof. Abi, my dear friend, is doing public speaking. Sometimes I actually tend to prefer public speaking, hint to the organizers. But for the last 5 or 6 years, they've kept me at writing skills. No, that's not so good. So there are many reasons to write, and many kinds of writers, right? You can be a novelist, a research paper, a journalist, an academic, or even a columnist. The only type of writer that I don't condone is the keyboard warrior. And I hope none of you here are the more modern term is the troll, right? So I hope none of you are, a keyboard warrior troll in that sense. That's a no-no. Though often it's quite easy to just go online and write stuff. So a little bit about me, just very quickly. As mentioned earlier, I'm the director of the CEO's office at Sunway Education Group. That's my lovely boss, the loveliest boss, Prof. Elizabeth Lee, who I believe you all might be hearing from at some point. I've also spent a bit of time in government. I've worked at the Education Ministry, so I'm very passionate for education. I've also worked at the Ministry of Finance. You can see me in the picture on the left looking very concerned. I used to be the press secretary to the ministers. So my job is to listen to them when they talk to the press. So all of you know when ministers speak to press, there's always all these weird things that are being said, right? So I'm the guy behind the scenes who goes, oh no, I'm the first person to go, oh no, not you, not all of you. I used to host a TV show, and I said used to because it was a victim of COVID, where when COVID started, we just couldn't record anymore, and we sort of put a hiatus on it. The commercial that they published. Of course, it's all flashy because it's very quick scenes, but to be honest, it was quite a boring show because it was just a talk show. And the hope was always to do something like Hassan Minhaj, Patriot Act, or one of those, with more graphics type of things one day. But who knows? Maybe one day we'll get back to it. I had an opportunity to work in Australia for a while. And I was also a lawyer in terms of background, but FYI, that's not me, just in case. Kind of looks like me, except for the mustache part, I think. I'm quite a local boy. I grew up in KL. I went to SK Taman Bukit Maluri. So I'm not sure whether anybody here is from the Kepong area or Bandar Menjalara. My chat's not on at the moment, so Tracy, if anybody says anything that's related, just feel free to shout out.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. And after primary school, I went to Victoria Institution. So I don't know whether there are any Victorians here, but if there are, great. I think VI boys tend to not join this competition. I don't know why. It's they all think they're too good at it. And I actually did my undergraduate in a public university in Malaysia. This is the International Islamic University Malaysia. It's a beautiful place. And of course, as all of you know, or maybe, I don't know whether you all know this. You all know what this building is? It is known as the Radcliffe Camera, or the RadCam. It is the library at Oxford. It's the library for social sciences, theology studies, and a few others. And it is one of the oldest. And it also houses almost every single book ever published in the UK in history. That's pretty cool, eh? But what I want to say also about my journey is it wasn't all smooth sailing. I very honestly didn't do too well in my SPM. I know the results came out for some of your friends earlier last month. And when I say I didn't do too well, I probably shouldn't say it. But let's just say it was just the bare minimum to get into university. I didn't get more than 3 A's. Just going to leave this as there now. If you want to ask me more, you ask me more later, all right? I had challenges with my weight. So I am kind of like a big size, rather chubby individual. Maybe not so right now. But I remember peaking at about 105 kilograms at one point in my life, just after Form 5. So I always had a bit of these insecurity, body image issues. And that sort of also impacted my self-esteem as I was growing up. At the same time, I was quite socially awkward. How people might think of me an extrovert, but I'm actually quite introverted. But all of this one, I had to learn, overcome, change my eating habits, start eating healthier. And, the thing about the SPM was I realized I did pure science, but when I entered university, I realized I was more of a social science kind of guy. And I think many of you here probably feel the same way. Because I know in Malaysia, there's this perception that if you don't do science, you're not smart enough. I don't know whether that's the same now. I did my SPM quite some years ago. But what's important is I had good people around me. And this is how I overcame all of these personal challenges. Family, friends, teachers, mentors, and my cats. Some of you may have heard about a minute ago, Meow. Actually, my cat's just roaming around me. He's a bit of he likes attention. Now, there you go. Now, imagine being, could you hear that, Tracy?
Yeah, I could hear that.
Ramsey, stop meowing. Okay, sorry about that. Now, imagine you being with these people or your pets. This is them. That's Ramses and Mo on the left and right. We dressed them up for Hari Raya, so don't mind them. The point is this.
Another meow. Yay, hello.
Show all of you that's him. I'm going to put him here so that he sits down quietly. Okay. The point is this. Life is a journey. There'll be ups and downs, but do take my word for it. There's always something to look forward to. Me personally, I found that I'm happiest when I can inspire others. That's why I've been doing this effective writing for a while now. It does give me a lot of joy. And I write a lot. So this was my first lesson that I'd like to share with all of you. Tell a story and aim to inspire. How I structured it from the start up till the end, which is my aim is to inspire others, be around people you love, is all how I also think when I write. It's what resonates with people the most. So let's have a quiz. I hope all of you are there and with me. Please get your pen and paper ready, or you don't really need one, but just something to sort of remember. If you have your phones, you can even write on your phones. Okay, it's going to be a quick sort of shotgun type of quiz, right? So I hope all of you are ready. Let's go. Question number 1. What is COVID-19? A, the name of a rock band. B, a new series on Netflix. C, a country. Or D, a respiratory virus. Oh, I see the chat box buzzing. So I'm going to try and open the chat box.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, people are answering. Very good, very good, very good. Thank you. Suchi, Chihim, Avilia, Jack. Are you sure? I'm pretty sure the answer is B. Okay, so I suppose all of you are right. It is a respiratory virus, and I think all of us are with it and what it's about. Let's go on to the second one. Which of the following is not part of the Rukun Negara? And so A, believe in God. B, loyalty to king and country. C, supremacy of the constitution. D, rules of laws. E, courtesy and morality. Or F, love for food. I think this one's quite easy as well. The answer is F. And though I do think, it might be worthwhile to put food there, because we always find that people come together because of food. And yeah, sorry, just a moment. See, when you're at home, there'll be people on the people outside trying to. Yeah, should be okay. Okay. Anyway, next one. Who is the Vice President of the United States of America? A, Clarissa Henderson. B, Kamala Harris. C, Katy Perry. D, Camel Humpback. Just really good to think of a K and a H combination there. All right. Very good. So many answers coming in. I think my quiz is quite easy. Maybe I'll make it harder next time. What do you think, Tracy?
Yeah, I think so too. See, all the answers are the same.
Okay, so yes, it is Kamala Harris, the first female vice president of color from the United States of America. Yeah. And the next one is, okay, this one might be a bit harder. Of the following countries, which has administered more vaccines than Malaysia? There's only one country here. This one will be quite interesting. So let's see. Yeah, Lim Yan Xiao goes as easy as ABC. Let me. They both jumped on the table, so they both want attention, but I'm going to try that.
Okay, Daniel, for this one, we do have a mixture of responses actually.
Yep, I noticed that.
Yeah.
Yep. E and B, none of the above. They're all ahead of us. That'll be interesting. Okay, so I will show the answer right about now. The answer is Japan. So in terms of doses administered, and I'll go to the next slide. So, and I just took this up last night. In terms of COVID doses administered per 100 people, then what's aggregated to the society, to the population size, we are actually, the chat box aside. We are, okay. We are just below Japan, Germany, and Singapore. Of course, there are a few other countries above us, but I think many of us tend to get quite excited, or what they say, quite surprised when you realize that we're actually above UK, Australia, US, and Thailand. Of course, UK has more people who have received both doses. This one here calculates both the first and the second. But the point I want to say here is it's very easy for us to feel very negative about things that go on out there. And by sharing this, I'm hoping that we can sort of develop an understanding also that the facts speak for itself. And a good friend of mine is one of the advisors to the Mostly Minister who is running the vaccine rollout. And I can tell you for sure that it is, they are very passionate about it to see it through. Most people are replying none of the above. Yeah. Okay, next question. What is Undi 18? A movement to allow those below 18 to vote. B, a movement to enable a person to vote 18 times in an election. C, very fast. A movement called United Nations Defense Initiative 2018. A movement to lower the voting age. I think this is also quite easy. So I see all of you coming up with answers. The answer is D. Oh, sorry, the answer is A. Those why did I put A? My God, see, I made a mistake. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, maybe the arrangement ran off a little bit. It's definitely D. It's definitely D. How did that happen? Anyway, it's a movement to lower the voting age to 18. Just imagine I didn't make this mistake here. And I think some of you are probably very aware that there are movements now to try to get this to be implemented sooner rather than later. There's a court case that's ongoing. And this is something that's definitely of public interest. Maybe in the chat box, you can also share what your thoughts are about what's currently ongoing with this. Okay. Last question. Who is Malaysia's youngest minister in history? Is it YB Kelvin Yee? Is it YB Nurul Izzah? Is it the late Tan Sri K. Johari, who was the first education minister? Or is it YB Syed Saddiq? I see answers coming in very fast there. Yeah, all of you really must be all very smart, all getting the right answering there. Okay. Oops. Cool. So the answer, I know some of you may have double thought when you saw the late Tan Sri K. Johari. He was also quite young when he first became a minister. But the youngest in our history is YB Syed Saddiq. Oh, Ashwari Devi, very excited. So an interesting anecdote is that Saddiq was actually one of my students back in university. So I've known him since he was in high school. And this was a picture of us taken about 3 years ago when he first became minister. And he was also, we actually chatted about me joining his office back then to sort of help him out. But at that point, I said no. And eventually what happened was I joined Sunway. But I'm very proud of him. And we do still chat from time to time about various issues. And, I always wish him well. I'm so proud to see him do what he's doing in Muar currently. And I'm sure all of you are as well. Okay, so how did you do in the quiz? Probably most of you got it correct, except for probably the one about vaccinations. So this is our second lesson. Enjoy reading. Build your general knowledge. It comes in handy when writing. And it's fun to know random things as well. And I'm saying this because becoming an effective writer is also about how much you know about what's happening in and around the world, because then you can draw examples from elsewhere. And when personal experience, and as you grow and you gain more experience, that also becomes your content. Reading gives you content as well. Here are some of the books that I quite enjoy. I recently read Robert Kwok's memoir, which talks about his history. He's known as our Sugar King, currently based in Hong Kong. He came back a few years ago when to help with some governance matters, but it's quite insightful. Of course, then there's Utopia for a Realist. That's one of my most favorite books. It talks about the future of society. All of you here will one day look towards getting jobs, but people talk about maybe the future isn't about finding jobs. Maybe the robots will be so productive, so helpful that we can just take care of each other. And society is a society that cares for each other because all our basic needs are taken care of. I think that's very interesting. The Elon Musk book might be a bit controversial, maybe beyond your age, so maybe get your parents concerned because there's colorful language there. But all of you know that Elon is the founder of Tesla, SpaceX, Solar City, and a few others, right? So, but this book is very insightful. You also find out, you also learn not just about the good things, but also the flaws of some of these individuals. You know, they are, after all, humans. And of course, the Harry Potter books. I'm usually not a big reader of fiction-based books, but Harry Potter was one of my favorites. And I actually used to pre-order them when they're coming out. So that's a hint of how old I am. When Harry Potter was, when I was young, Harry Potter was still coming out. I don't, so I think that gives away a little bit. So look at these three things here. What are they? It's Taj Mahal, it's KLCC, and it's also the, you know what the third building on the right is? Anyone?
No responses so far.
That's the CCTV building in China. And they're all buildings, they're all structures. So building structures, let's talk about structuring speeches, because some of you earlier, Ho Yanshen said from China. Yes, Yanshen, you're right, it is from China. It's a CCTV building, which is not the, like, you know, camera, closed circuit television. It's the, their news channel in China. So I would like to talk a little bit about building and structuring. Let's talk about structuring speeches, because I know earlier some of you said you weren't sure how to flow it, right? And I'll just give you an example of a column. Oops. Usually newspaper or columns are between 600 to 900 words. I don't know in school now what's the, you know, essay, the limits for essays that you write. 800 is the sweet spot. So usually people will not read beyond, you know, 800 words for those more serious readers. Otherwise, it's actually look closer to 500. And now in the time of TikTok and Instagram Reels, it's probably like closer to, you know, when people point, you know, something pops up. Maybe for next year's presentation, I'll try to do a pop-up as part of this. Sometimes you'll find, if you read articles, you'll find one sentence, one paragraph. And I know in school, when you write one sentence, one paragraph, your teacher will probably come and like strangle you or something, right? But for newspaper columns, even newspaper reports, you'll notice that's actually very common. And you target 20 to 30 paragraphs. So that's sort of, that gives you a rough idea, i.e. how many sentences you can write to reach your word limit. That's one way to structure it. And informal referencing and linking. A master's thesis, for example, can be, you know, 10 to 15,000 words. You have very specific spacing, font sizes. There's very formal referencing. You must have a table of content, etc., etc. So, oops, every time I see the chat box blink, I'll very quickly open it up to see. Okay, yep. Yeah, and what, sorry, yeah. So what I'll also share at this point is, don't worry, I'll probably need to go a bit fast because there's a lot to share, and I think teaching how to write in an hour or an hour plus Q&A probably isn't enough time, but I'll share these slides with you and maybe later the organizers can share it, so it's a point of reference. At this point, just sort of absorb what we're going through, and you can ask me more questions later. All right, so next, starting a column or writing or any writing exercise. There are many ways. So let's talk about structuring, right? You've got the opening, you've got the body, and you've got the closing. I think most of you know this. Your teachers teach you this all the time. And for columns especially, there are many ways you can do this. You can start with a quote, you can start with a fact, or start with a question. The key here, and I put this on the third point, is what will capture the reader's attention. because what you do in your opening sets the stage for what's to come. If people usually see the first paragraph and they go, nah, it's not for me, they might just not bother. And you'll notice sometimes people like to go to the start and then right to the end of the column. And then they realize, then they'll think, okay, is it worthwhile reading everything that's in between? So let's try some exercises. And this one is where I'll get you all to think a little bit more, to share a little bit more. Pen and paper, are you ready? Let's see. Okay, so I hope all of you are ready. Please have your pens and paper or something to write down with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share an excerpt of an introduction from a column that I've written, and I would like you to do a few things. So let's go through it very quickly together. An historic day indeed. I'm just going to minimize my... Okay. An historic day indeed. Tuesday, July 16, 2019, members of parliament, all 211 present, voted unanimously to pass the constitutional amendment that will witness three key things happening. Firstly, the lowering of the age to 18, of the voting age to 18. Secondly, automatic voter registration. And thirdly, 18 being the minimum age for Malaysian citizens to run for public office. The big rising question, now what? Making Undi 18 a reality is just the beginning. A lot of hard work, happiness, and pain are in store. Some thoughts below. So this one I wrote just after it was passed, 2 years ago, in fact. So now the question for all of you, your participants, is what did the writer, or what did I do in the introduction? Write down as many thoughts as you think. So I want you to describe what I did. Okay, are you ready? Just write down as many as possible. I'll give you 1 minute starting from now. Oops. Some of you are putting it in the chat box. Okay, yep. I see Rachel, Kian E, Junheng, Jack. Yep. You can write it in the chat box or you can write it in your own notes if you want to, no problem. Both work. 10 seconds more. And time. All right, so thank you for the comments in the chat box. Let's see. Gave a historical account and used a question to hook the readers and make the introduction interesting. Thank you for calling it interesting. Possible feedback. I think you all are correct. I shared a fact of an event. I explained what happened. I asked a question, and essentially I set it up for the next part. So when I said some thoughts below, and then it sort of goes into it, right? Let's try another introduction. So I want to give you all a few introductions so that you can also get a bit of exercise in. So let's see. Okay, I'll quickly read this. Remember those Nigerian prince email scams, also known as advance fee scams? They usually sought money upfront in return for a more lucrative amount later on. Many fell for this get-rich plot despite its often ridiculous premise and promise, and they still do. But why? In a 2012 research paper titled "Why Do Nigerian Scammers Say That They Are From Nigeria?" Cormac Hurley of Microsoft Research argued that the ludicrousness of scammer emails, usually riddled with typos and grammatical errors, was part of the effectiveness of the con game. All right, same question for all of you. What did the writer do in the introduction? You have 1 minute from now. Okay, I see some points from the earlier one. Shasha, Brandon, Joyce. Okay, let's see the current one. Attract readers to remember a case of scam. Okay, quoted research paper, asking questions for hook, using research to support, stated the situation. Okay. 10 more seconds. Asking questions from Ainina. Rhetorical question, that's right. Okay, time's up. Okay, so, yep, possible feedback. Started with a question, mentioned a research paper, and why did I do that? Because it helps build credibility, and it's not like just me sort of wanting to sound like I'm highly opinionated, but it's also opinion backed by facts. The point when I ask, but why? It's almost a little bit sarcastic to kind of show how ridiculous the situation is, but why people still fall for it. So this is how I've sort of painted the introduction for this particular exercise. Let's do one more. And this is a newer one, which I wrote this year. And it goes, consider these scenarios. 1, a Kelantanese tuition teacher who used to earn 300 ringgit a month has been out of work since September 2020 due to the MCO. She supports a family of 4. She asked for seed money of 396 ringgit to start an Arab rice-packed food business. 2, a small business owner has been told by her mother-in-law to seek help from a Bomo shaman to boost sales. Mother-in-law also insists she wears makeup at her shop to woo customers. 3, an individual from Sabah in the M40 income group, in brackets salary of over 4,000 a month, needs financial help to cover costs until next month. The dependents include parents and 2 younger school siblings. This individual asked for 30 ringgit. How would you respond to these individuals? Okay, and I'll give you a minute starting now. Kian says relatability and sympathy, gave 3 situations and hooked the readers by asking a question, straight to the point, asking for their opinion about this. Brings up several examples, rhetorical question to hook. Okay. Rika says straight to the point and asking their opinion about this. Okay, 1 minute. So brought up several scenarios to highlight how dire the situation is. Very good. Weiji, Rachel stating the effects of MCO by taking readers into these people's lives. All right, so thank you. So same question. So I started with a few stories. I asked a question, and everything that you've written in the chat box is actually really, really good. So thank you for that feedback. You're absolutely right. I wanted to share these 3 stories so that I could evoke an emotion. These are scenarios. The reality is these stories are a lot longer. Each of them can be their own article. So I had to really make it concise and just kind of focus on what I felt would resonate the most with the readers. And I ended with a question on how they would respond. But what you will see, if any of you later on read the article, it's all available online. It says premium, but maybe if you all need it for free, just let me know. I won't tell the staff. Just kidding. Later on, I don't actually sort of explain, right, what happens to the tree. But that happens in very, very brief situations. So sometimes the introduction can be just to sort of get it there and then kind of build from there on end. Some of you might notice against the unorthodox nature of how I've structured it. I don't know whether your school teachers will allow it or whether it works for you. But this is, of course, writing for a very different audience in that sense. Okay, let's move on. So how did you find the exercise? I hope it was quite easy. Seriously though, practice does make perfect. Next, so we went from the introduction. I want to go straight to the conclusion next. And I don't want to talk about the middle parts yet. When you conclude a column, right? So we saw how we started. I want to go straight to the conclusion first. There are many ways. You can end a column with a summary, a quote, a question, your own personal view, or something I call a CTA. How many of you have heard CTAs? Or it's known as a call to action. The key in ending any article would be, what do you want your readers to take with them? I know in school that teachers often say, you know, you have to summarize it in 3 sentences, right? Sort of like the overarching, I talked about this, this, and this. That's fine. And then if you're a debater, which I used to do once upon a time, it's okay. But in an article, in a column, you don't always have to repeat what you've covered because people, you know, it's there, right? And you want to save on space. So I like ending with a CTA or a call to action. Okay, same thing. Let's go through the same exercise again. I'm going to use the same articles, but now I want you to put it in here as well. So for Undian 18, here's how the conclusion goes. Final prompt. How do we empower our future electorate to ensure the development of a healthy and functional, not dysfunctional democracy? For me, it boils down to education, both generally and voter education specifically. While this applies to even older voters, Undi 18 creates the imperative to start younger, and society owes a duty to empower them. Ultimately, we want a democracy that leads to unity and togetherness. This will be our source of strength. Our first Prime Minister, Tunku Abdul Rahman Putra Al-Haj, summed it up meaningfully when he said, in our multiracial society, our Malaysian democracy, nothing is more fundamental than harmony between the many races which form the Malaysian nation. Looking forward to Malaysian democracy's next chapter. And that's how I concluded. 1 minute. What did the writer do in the conclusion? Take your time to think about it and describe. Okay. Darwin, you said ended with a hope, all right? You quote the sum of the article, a list of scenarios. Oh no, that was from earlier. 10 seconds. Okay, and stop. Ask questions to provoke readers' thoughts, give an expectation to the reader, shows the writer's hope. Okay, so some of the possible feedback would be question, a final prompt. Call to action. So my call to action was society owes, you know, the young people, i.e. you, a duty to empower you. And I quoted the first Prime Minister. So these are some ways that you can end, right? And I think for all of you at home, as when you write, it's always good to think of a call to action. Like, what is it that your readers should remember and do? Okay, let's try another one on fighting COVID-19 scammers. One more activity, let's go. So it goes, be that as it may, I do hope Malaysians practice more vigilance and do take time to refer to the correct resources. For example, for access to the government stimulus package assistance, businesses can go to blah, 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 or call blah, blah, blah. Individuals, on the other hand, can go to the website or the Finance Ministry's hotline or call or even join the Telegram channel. Scammers go after both the young and old. So let us do our part when we speak to our loved ones, spare a moment to remind and empower them. New and novel scams may emerge over time, but shared vigilance is key as we keep ourselves and each other socially distanced from being scammed. So 1 minute from now, so as per the previous ones, how did I conclude this one? CTA, very good CTA technique. After this, all of you will be putting in CTAs, and your teachers will be like, what's going on here? Give examples and ways. Yep, give resources and solutions. Thank you. encourage reader to take action together. Yep. Okay, 10 seconds more. Think about it. Suggestion of some ways from Anne. Sasha said valuable advice. Thank you. Encourage the reader to take action together. Okay, and time. So yeah, all of you are right in what you've shared. Possible feedback. Refer the public to resources in case they need help. The CTA was that concept of shared vigilance. Yeah, so most of you got it right. And I hope this is helpful. Let's see, I think I've got one more. Yep, so let me read this out. Conclusion, I accidentally squeezed my wife's arm where the vaccine jab was administered. This is a totally different one. And she says, "Are you trying to kill me?" said my wife as she shed a tear from the pain, and we both broke out in laughter shortly thereafter as I answered, yes. Yes, there are remote risks associated with getting all vaccinations, and there are many unknowns. But as more and more data emerges on the real-world benefits of vaccination, and as other countries lift COVID-19 restrictions, hope emerges and we see light at the end of the tunnel. With over 2 million doses administered and as things ramp up, we are on our way towards herd immunity. Let us give our support, get vaccinated, and protect each other. Register today and get vaccinated. Hashtag Lindung Diri Lindung Semua. Okay, so what did the writer do in the conclusion? I'll give you 30 seconds for this one because I think most of you are probably quite familiar now with how this works. Right, comments, chats are coming in. Use the funny story to encourage the public to get vaccinated. Share the first, current situation, CTA, and quotes. Okay. Encourage to get vaccine. All right. Personal experience to relate to the audience. Yeah, you still got about 20 seconds more. 10:50. Tracy, just a time check. When are we supposed to start the Q&A?
10:55.
Okay. When do we stop? Or when do I stop?
Basically until 10:55, and then after that there will be Q&A until 11:15.
Okay, so 11:15 at latest. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not enough time for these things. Okay, time's up. Let me see. Darwin told a joke to get the attention and end with facts. Nina, personal experience. Okay, cool. Yeah. So you're all correct. There's some personal experience used. I shared a quirky story and a quote. That's me and my wife. We went for our AZ jabs 2 months ago, and hopefully we'll be getting our second jab in a few weeks' time. And yeah, and I personally, this was a very personal piece because I felt, then it would resonate with the readers better. So again, how did you find that exercise? It's quite easy again, wasn't it? Seriously though, practice makes perfect. All of this that you've seen takes time, and the more you write, the more you sort of understand how to position it. The next one is about building the body or the meaty parts, and I kept this for sort of the last segment because it's quite extensive, right? And there are many ways to do this, and I might say some of you are probably better than me at writing these aspects. But what's important is always remember the basics. The 4 W's and 1 H. Ask yourselves the what, the why, the who, the when, the where. The PPC formula, your premise, and your conclusion. So what I say by this is every part of your writing has to have sort of like its conclusion of its own sort. So like how in the introduction, I concluded with a question. The conclusion, I might end with a CTA. Every body or every part of the body should also have sort of it shouldn't hang, in other words, right? Advanced tips would be use analogies, think of comparisons, right? If it's what happens elsewhere around the world. And the key is this: what's your message from this point? Like what do you want people to understand from that particular point? I'm a bit mindful for time because this might take a while. This article hasn't been published yet. It might be published next week. It's called The White Flag of Mental Strength and Not Surrender. It is a bit of a heavier piece, I must say, because it is about mental health. It is about sometimes feeling isolated and helpless. So what I would do, let me think about it because of the time. I'm trying to see how to run it. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just narrate this first. So instead of you doing the exercises, we go through this together, and maybe you can keep this for the Q&A if you want to ask. So the introduction, if I may read this, goes, "The scented candle was a nice touch," said Mariam, not her real name. "The counselors incorporate music as well as color therapy into the counseling sessions. They try to make you feel welcome and relax. Things have certainly changed in the last 10 years. Mariam, who works in government, has come a long way since 2011 when she found herself standing at the 14th floor ledge of her office building, contemplating suicide. Feeling the need to talk to her mother one last time, her mother's words dissuaded her from it. Her colleagues arrived on time. Mariam was hospitalized for a week. Her mental challenges started at work, where Mariam was bullied by some seniors for being outspoken and labeled as rebellious. They would give her impossible to complete tasks, which led to self-esteem issues. Voices started appearing in my head. From inaudible whispers, they began telling me that I'm useless and unable to even do a simple job. Mariam's close shave with death led to an organizational shakeup. She credits her bosses for being supportive alongside her friends and family. A cat lover like me, Mariam enjoys doing charity work, having organized many free markets since 2015. She also writes words of encouragement on social media and shares her experiences so that it could help others. I find my sense of purpose by giving others purpose." This was just the introduction. And I did start on a more somber note. Don't worry about this, because I wanted to sort of emphasize or drive the fact that, and to share Mariam's story. And I interviewed her for this particular story because she was so happy to be able to share it with more and more people, although this happened 10 years ago. She got help, she had supportive people around her, and now she uses that experience to share and to help others. And that gives her purpose. And I think that's also very, very important. There's a few bodies here, but I'll probably go to, let me see, this is the conclusion. Yeah, so this is another body which I would very quickly read out, and it goes, the heading I put for this is culture, consistency, and mental health training. About 2 years ago, Farah was studying psychology in college. She applied for a deferment due to rising mental health issues. Despite her psychiatrist's letter, her lecturers doubted the authenticity of the diagnosis and insisted on interviewing her separately. If it were a physical ailment like a fever or flu, they would not have probed further. The irony is that psychology department lecturers were the ones causing further mental health distress. Farah's experience is a reminder that while mental health awareness training is important, organizational culture acceptance is true. As society becomes more conscious of mental health concerns and more people start seeking for help, there is a need to ensure that genuine cases are taken seriously while abuse is curbed. So what I was trying to do with this part of the body was to talk about, as you see the heading above, culture, consistency, and health training. And I use Farah's story as kind of like the hook. The end goal from this body was always to emphasize the point that culture is important, training is important. And that's why it's mentioned there. In other parts of the article, I cite more facts and statistics. When it is out, hopefully next week, or if it's not too controversial for the Star, I'll ask the organizers to share it with all of you. There was also a study which said that when your leaders or your teachers communicate and share their own vulnerabilities, you as students or as staff are more likely to be comfortable talking about your mental health challenges. And there was a statistic which said 23% of workers would tend to slide into a sense of depression or isolation if their leaders didn't communicate effectively. That is why effective communication is so important, right? And that was one of the other parts of the body here. Okay, I'm mindful of the time, so I'm going to quickly show you the conclusion, which goes, the white flag of strength, not surrender. Malaysians are a proud bunch. Even in times of need, we prefer to say that everything is okay to avoid feeling embarrassed or give the impression that we cannot care for ourselves. But these times are tough. These are tough times, and no doubt many are at a breaking point, mentally, physically, financially, and physically. The Director General of Health recently shared that suicide cases are on the rise. As of March, the figure stood at 336, about 4 cases daily. The entirety of 2020 recorded 631. The recent hashtag Bendera Putih, a white flag movement, has seen Malaysians from all walks of life pledge to help those in need. anyone needing assistance just has to put up a white flag in front of their house as a signal, or they can even go online to social media and do it. Many positive stories of neighbors helping their neighbors or strangers online have appeared. The kita jaga kita, or we care for each other spirit, is strong and alive. Waving a white flag is historically seen as a sign of surrender, but in Malaysia, it is a sign of our strength. And I personally believe so. So, any of you here today, participants, being in school, online learning, it's not easy, right? Feeling that sense of isolation. If any of you do feel pressured, please reach out to someone who you can trust, you can talk to, or even to us insofar as that we can help out. Okay, so that was lesson 3. There are many ways to do it. Sometimes people say don't use quotes, you're not writing a report. Sometimes people say CTA is not always that necessary if it's a story or fiction. What I want to say here is be comfortable with your structure. Just write, let the ideas flow, find a structure you're comfortable with, practice, adjust, edit, and every writer is unique. I personally write best at night with a cup of tea or coffee. This is another example of a story I wrote about one of my dearest mentors, Mrs. Amy Bala. She was a social welfare officer for over 30 years. Please read this article if you have time, but I'll just show you an example. When I interviewed her, I was recording her, but at the same time, I was also writing my notes. And these are what my notes look like. I'm so sorry for the bad handwriting, but writing at breakneck speed isn't easy. And there's all these arrows. I'm also a left-hander, so this might be one of the reasons why it's in that manner. But the point is, as you write and as you, this is the equivalent of an outline. Your teachers will all say, make outlines. You'll be, I want to say this, where does this belong? Oh, can't forget to say this. Oh, not sure, but I'm gonna just put this down first. I want to say this, reminder, etc., etc. Mustn't forget. So as you are writing, prepare your outline. Your outline is going to be very, very, very useful in eventually putting together the final piece, because it might be too long and then you'll know what to cut. Sometimes you feel, hey, sayang lah, I really want to keep this part because it's difficult. But don't worry, that's not always the case. Oops. So that's the piece, how it eventually looked like. And it's really, really wonderful. My eyes were really open when I spoke to her. Lesson 4, keep it simple. Build your vocabulary over time. Don't worry about vocabulary. I continued improving mine over time. I spoke English and Malay at home. I think both are pretty much equal in terms of how my ability to write and to read. But just a few points, right? Use simple language, don't use big words. If you read any of my articles, I rarely, if ever, use big words. Short and concise sentences. Be logical. The 4 W's, the 1 H. Be thoughtful. Once in a while, step out of your own shoes and put yourself in the shoes of your reader. Put yourself in the shoes of people who might be interested in the piece and ask yourself, how will they feel about it? Remember, and this is the biggest message I want to share, the value of written work is in the ideas and the message it conveys, and not whether big and bombastic words were used. So one of you earlier mentioned about big and bombastic words, right? Don't be intimidated. Don't intimidate yourself to use it, because from my experience, keeping it simple is very important. Sometimes in a professional setting or context, you may need to use bigger words, but people who are who understand, who are experienced leaders, they understand it's about the message. Lesson 5, and I think this is the last lesson, then we can go to Q&A, is find your mentor. Everyone needs a sounding board. Welcome criticism, even if it is not always constructive. Or personally though, I hate it when people criticize my writing, like hate. But hate is such a strong word, isn't it? But the third point is feeling less smart is sometimes a good thing. It only means that there's more to learn. And I quite enjoy it when people point out that I'm wrong, like all of you pointing out how easy my quiz was, or how you pointed out that my, I got my own question wrong, right? I highlighted the wrong one about DAT. And of course, learn from others. There can be more than one. I often share this at the end of my presentations, because when I want to speak to you, I sometimes I don't know what to say. So I asked my mother, and she said, on this for school children, I reckon you can use the analogy of how how all the stuff you write on post on Facebook, the cats are most popular. Hence, I use my cat. With your columns, human interest stories are the best. So I highlighted some of human interest. Effective writing, one needs to connect to the audience. Basically, informative, educational, entertaining. Everything is a story. It's a perspectives you tell it. You tell it from kan. My mom, a bit colloquialism there. That draws in people. I go, thanks. Of course, being the son, mom writes long messages. I'll just try to keep it short, right? Parents, thanks, great advice, perspectives, like summarizing. And then she goes, I'm your mom lah. Luckily, my mom's really cool like that. Long and short of it is, eventually, after almost 7 years of writing my column, I finally wrote a piece about my mother on the advice of Prof. Elizabeth. She said, hey, you think it's about time to write about your mother? I've never written about her. I've always tried to avoid. She was a journalist, so I think in that sense, I've always had a bit of an advantage in terms of my writing. But but she has also been my mentor. And I think for all of you, you've got your teachers, you've got your friends. I saw a chat link. This is a picture of my mother with the late Su Eugene, who was one of the editors at The Star. And he was also a mentor of sorts for me, because my earlier articles, I would send it to him and he would edit them, he would comment on them, and I learned from that. So for those of you participants, I wonder who your mentors are, right? Who are the people you can turn to when you need advice on how to write? I believe that might be my last slide. So, in summary, yeah, good to summarize. Lesson 1, tell a story, aim to inspire. Lesson 2, enjoy reading, gain general knowledge. Lesson 3, be comfortable with your structure, and we spend a bit of time there. Lesson 4, keep it simple. Lesson 5, find your mentor. Every month without fail, all my 80, 90 articles, I've sent it to, if not my mother, I've sent it to somebody else, at least to get some feedback and advice on it. And that has been really useful, because sometimes I feel this is the greatest writing I've ever done. But when I send it to them, they'll say, yeah, no, it's too, you're missing out the point, you're too emotional, you need to take a step back. Yeah, and Stephen just put in the group, all writers write and rewrite and have to get used of being edited. Being open to critical reading is vital, I find. Mentors are important. 100%. 100%. 7 years doing this and I'm still, getting advice from my mentors. Yeah, so that's the last slide. If you're interested to follow my cats, they're on Instagram. It's a plug on my part. For those of you at home, my offer often is, if you'd like me to give you some comments or advice on the pieces that you write, I'll be happy to give some views. So you can email me at my Sunway address, danielr@sunway.edu.my. So this is my sort of like free offer to you, right? If you wanted for me to have a look at your essay, just to give comments or as a sounding board, I'll be happy to do so. I'll try to reply as soon as possible. So don't be too shy. Yeah, and thank you very much. Stay safe. I see some people starting to follow the cats already. And yeah, thank you. You've been a great audience. It's 11:05, so we've got maybe about 10 minutes for Q&A. All right. Oh, back to you, Tracy.
Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. So now it's Q&A session. As you can see, there's this Slido platform link that was posted by Vivian earlier. So now what you can do is you can start asking your questions in Slido, and meanwhile, we shall look at Slido for now. So can I have Naomi to start sharing the platform?
Let me stop sharing my screen.
Okay. So Daniel, let's go through the questions, shall we?
Okay.
All right. So the first question, may I know how to write a good ending for an essay? So Daniel?
I think I just gave a talk about that. Let's share my slides later. Then you can refer to it. A good ending would be sort of putting together everything that you've written above. And like I said, I personally like a good call to action. I like a good quote that is relevant to the piece. Yeah, so that's how I would end.
Okay. Moving on to the next one. Hi, may I know what to do when I have no idea what to write on an essay?
Ooh, that's a good one. Many ways to think about. Number one, talk to your friend. Hey, what should I write about this time? Number two, ask yourself how you're feeling. if you notice, the name of my column is "What's Your Status?" And that's actually, I don't know whether Facebook still does it. You know, Facebook, maybe that's also a sign of my age. Facebook, at the status box, they will say, "What's your status?" And when you start writing, it comes out. So my column is actually named after that sort of, what's your status? What's happening today? I do ask some of my friends what to write about. You can also write about things, what is contemporary, right? Contemporary issues. So there are many ways to go about it. Yeah.
So next up, how do you get the motivation to write?
Ooh, that comes in waves. I must admit, over the 7 years, I may have missed a few deadlines, maybe not many, because I hold my column very sacred, maybe 3 or 4 times. I can remember 3 at most. Motivation, Eugene, comes in bits and pieces. Sometimes it is reluctant motivation when you have to write because it's an essay or an assignment. But what I find is when you get into the zone, you will be motivated to do it. What I do is sometimes I don't really write first, I think. Doing an outline actually helps with your motivation, because then you'll have a bird's eye view of what you want to write about. And I always find that very useful. So in Oxford, when we write, we always have essays, sometimes 2 or 3 essays, and you get a question, right? I just start putting down the first things to come to my points. On my phone, I actually sometimes go onto the notepad feature and I start just putting down points. Don't worry about stringing sentences. Just write down what comes to your mind first. Worry about the grammar, the editing later. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So the next one, let's see. Does copying a sample essay really help with my writing skills?
Oh, that's an interesting question, Anonymous. I think you're trying to, what you mean also is sometimes teachers will say, here's an essay, copy it down, and eventually if you do it often enough, you'll improve. It's a bit of a yes and a no and a maybe. What I did, if you remember from this exercise, is I gave you the reading, and what I asked you is I asked you to think about what the writer did. You see, what's important here is that contemplation, right? When you copy an essay, it's not about just for the sake of copying, because all of us at some point we can switch off our minds, our brains, our thinking, and we'll just write. It becomes a motor skill as opposed to a thinking skill. I think when somebody like your teacher asks you to write a sample essay or copy it, it's about understanding how the person structures it, right? That's why I gave you, just now 6 examples or 3 examples of essays, twice and then the body, because then you can think about how I did it, and then you can also think about why I did it. So asking yourself that will actually help as much as copying an essay would. So when you copy an essay, don't switch off your mind lah. Think of the flow. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, moving on to the next one. How can I increase my vocabulary effectively? And bracket, it's my largest insecurity.
That's a good question. Mine improved over the years. When I used to debate back in university and high school, I would listen to a lot of videos, watch videos. I would listen to other debaters, and some of them will use big words. Okay, Syed Saddiq, I'll give you a good example, what he did. Saddiq didn't have the biggest of vocabularies. In fact, he used very funny words sometimes, and he uses very funny analogies. And sometimes, if you even notice till today, he tends to emphasize ideas with the weirdest of terms. It's very cute lah. It's very endearing in that sense, right? I think, Anonymous, how you can increase your vocabulary, number 1, listen to other people, give speeches, give talks. If there's a word you don't know, number 2, write it down. On my phone, I actually have a dictionary called Word Book. I don't know if you can see it, but I have a dictionary so that in case I need to find out new words, I'll use it. Number 3, use those words in daily conversation, in your writings, and just see how it works. Eventually, your vocabulary will improve, but just like Syed Saddiq, it has to be conscious. He intentionally used new terms, new analogies, new phrases whenever he was learning debating, so that he could enhance his vocabulary. And you can see that he's come a long way since. Yep.
Okay. All right. So the next question, may I know, are there any good websites for educational essay writing? So Daniel?
I'm so sorry, but I really don't know about this one. educational essay writing can be like for your assignments and your thesis and all that. Personally, no. I think you can Google this up. You'll probably find a few. Like I said, there's no strictly speaking hard and fast rule. Talk to your mentors about this. I think that's probably better. My session obviously has been tailored more to column writing, so it's a little bit different. But I think there's a consistency about writing because, you know, legal writing, column writing, academic writing is very different. Maybe you can ask Prof. Abi in the next session. He's written a PhD. Okay.
Okay. All right. Oh, guys, by the way, there's this tip shared by Professor Stephen Hall as well on the chat box that says, try listening to TEDx.
Yep.
Which can be helpful. Yep.
Yep.
All right. So the next question, okay, this is a little bit personal. What is the most important turning point in your life, Daniel?
I've had a few, I must say, and like I mentioned to all of you, life is not static, lah. You know, I think the one big point for me was my SPM. Look, I got, like I said, less than 3 A's, and I think under conventional Malaysian culture, that's, you know, Asian culture, that means I was probably not very successful, and it did cause a lot of insecurity. It did make me feel like I was not very smart, but you know, I eventually got into university on the strength of my co-curricular background, debating and all that. So I was like a alternative pathway into university back then. But what I noticed then was, it was a turning point because it made me realize that I had to be a little bit more, not say no more serious, but you need to do things where your strengths are. Prof. Elizabeth would often talk about something called multiple intelligences. For me, clearly, I'm not a science guy. I like science, I like reading science, but I always found that my strength is in social science. That's why I went from, you know, just a few A's in my SPM to first class in IIU and, you know, to Oxford. So it's not impossible. You can go, that can happen in life. And, you know, I must say this, as you age in life and things happen, like, you know, whether it's having a boyfriend or a girlfriend, getting married, starting a family and stuff like that, they will all be turning points in their own way. You know, so for all of you in school, obviously you have in your time, whatever you face is important, is serious. But, you know, take it from me, who's a little bit older, that there'll be many turning points, and at the end of the day, you will overcome it. And as long as you can help others, I think you get a great sense of satisfaction from it. Yep.
All right, thank you so much. All right, actually, guys, due to time constraint, we'll be taking the one last question. So I believe, Daniel, you can see the questions, okay, right? Why don't you pick the last one?
Okay, there's a person, BTS, who says, how can I improve my writing skills? That's what this whole presentation was about. But I just pointed it out because I'm a BTS fan as well. Recently picked it up. Anyway, side story. Do I have suggestions? So wait, don't worry, I won't answer that one. Do I write essays? Is that what that quote?
Okay. One last question. Yeah. Pick the last one.
Okay, wait, let me see the other questions. If I start reading recently, but I often slide away from the book, how can I stay? Oh, so many questions.
Yeah. So
how can I know where to read the article that you've written before? How can critical thinking, share PowerPoint slides? Yep, I can share PowerPoint slides, read my articles, I'll share the link. Writing an audience essay with so many questions. How to build up our grammar in a fast way? Hi, just continue doing it. Work with your mentor, continue practicing. Drop me an email with a piece of your writing and I'll try to guide you. How do we get over the fear of blank paper when the teacher gives us a topic essay? Smiley face, big smiley outline. Just get your thoughts down, take a step back, take a deep breath, and then start writing. Okay, so many good questions. I know Prof. Abi is probably waiting and it's 11:15. How can I start as a beginner? Anonymous. I don't think any of you, okay, this is the last one.
Yeah,
I don't think any of you here are beginners. Writing is like talking as well. What I do is I try to write as how I would talk. And that's my way of keeping it simple, keeping it conversational, and making the readers feel like, you know, they can connect with me. As a beginner, I think all of you have writing as exercises or experience in school, and learn from there. Then keep it up. Now, one way is if you want to test yourselves, write a short letter, maybe 300 to 400 to 500 words, and send it to an editor of a newspaper. Usually you can send it to say editor@thestar.com or editor@fmt.com.my. So getting it published or wanting to be out there in public is also one way to continuously improve yourself. Okay, I hope, I'm so sorry, but I will not take any more of Abhi's time either. Thank you, everyone. Tracy, back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. We understand that you do have a lot of burning questions that you wish to ask Daniel, but don't worry, you can still email him to the email address that Vivian has posted there in the chat box. Okay, all right, so now next will be our group photo time, guys. So now is the time that we can see all of your faces here. Finally, okay, guys, so please switch on your camera. And this is when we will take a screenshot. Hello there. Hi, UC. Hello, Prof. Stephen.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm well. I really enjoyed that. Thank you, Daniel. I think you addressed some things very, very well. Most enjoyable.
Thank you so much, Professor. Appreciate it.
All right. So anyone else would want to switch on the camera? Okay, maybe we wait for another minute, shall we? Okay.
Okay.
All
Waiting
right.
for a minute. I can answer more questions then. I hope all of you had a good session. Sorry for rushing.
Okay. All right. So guys, okay. So look at your camera. Show us your brightest smile. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay. So Naomi, all good. Can I go to the next?
Yes, can.
Okay. All right. Next. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Going to our last shot. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you very much, guys. You may switch off your camera. Thank you so much, Daniel, for the very insightful sharing session on effective writing skills. Okay, moving on. Let me share my slides now. Hello there, Prof. Abi. You are all ready? Hang on. Give me a moment. Let me share my slides.
Hi, Tracy.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Sons. How do you follow such an amazing session, Daniel? I just want to congratulate you. And it's so nice to see how engaged the students were as well. Great job.
Okay, hang on. Okay, we will start your session, Prof. Abi, in 1 minute time. Hello there, everyone. Once again, this is our 19th Oxford and Cambridge Society Malaysia English language event. That would want to drop a few gentle reminders once again to all of you here. Same goes to this session. No recording is allowed. However, you may feel free to take a screenshot of important points you wish to save. Participate in our Q&A. Don't be shy. Same goes to this session. You may ask your questions in our Slido platform. Ensure your mic remains on mute while the speaker is talking to avoid interruptions. And of course, same goes to this session. Enjoy, have fun learning with us. Well, this will be the platform which my colleague Vivian will be posting the link in the chat box as well. So you may ask all the questions you wish to clarify along the way during the talk in this platform. Okay. And now we have our Prof. Abi Virakumarasivam. He will be conducting the talk titled Effective Oral Communication Skills. Okay, Prof. Abi is actually a University of Cambridge trained cancer geneticist and the Dean of the School of Medical and Life Sciences at Sunway University. As the chair of the ASEAN Young Scientists Network and the International Network for Government Science Advice Asia, he champions science leadership in the region. In 2016, he became the first Asian to be crowned as the world's best science communicator to share on the topic effective oral communication skills. Hello there, Prof. Abi.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi,
hello.
Tracy.
Okay, so as we can see, it's all about science throughout your career, okay? So do you mind sharing with all of us here what sparked your interest in science initially when you were a student back then?
So I guess a lot of it's got to do with my family background as well. So both my parents, although they did not go to the university, they certainly put a lot of their own aspirations in my own, sort of growing up, right? And as a result of that, as Daniel alluded to the fact, being a typical Indian or Sri Lankan or Asian family, science is always looked upon as the option. And so my dad used to buy all these encyclopedias. So if Daniel was concerned he's going to show his age, I'm sure the young kids here today, like, did you buy encyclopedias, like hard copies? Yes. And it's really from there. And over time, I was also very lucky. I grew up in a town called Kuantan. I'm not sure whether we have got anyone from Pahang today. And I was very lucky that my teachers in my primary school as well as in my secondary school, they were great, and they also provided me with that level of confidence that I could do it. And at some point, I found that I was good at probabilities as well. I was very interested in medicine, and so with maths and science and how genetics and how can you predict disease risks and really modeling diseases. That's essentially how I got into it. But also, I think together with what Daniel said, sometimes it's also the case of opportunities and being at the right frame at the right time, and actually just opening that door that's, calling you to enter.
Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you so much for sharing. So now, Prof. Abi, the floor is all yours. You may take over.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, let me stop sharing. Okay.
First of all, I just want to thank the marketing department of Sunway University, Sunway College, Sunway Education Group, Tracy and gang, but also the Oxford and Cambridge Society for giving me this opportunity again. I know I've not been involved in 19 years, but I have to say, bravo, Margaret and team for really pursuing and being persistent and being resilient and really promoting this initiative. And it's really something that I enjoy being part of. And just listening to the amazing Mr. Daniel just now, really strengthens the importance for us to engage with all of you today. All right, so can you see my slides? Are they being shared? Yes. Okay, great.
Yep.
All right, so today I'm going to talk about effective oral communication, and what you're going to find is that there are a lot of parallels with what Daniel has already shared. And that's because ultimately you will realize it's about the message that you actually want to convey. It's just now the medium that we're going to use is different. A lot of the context that I'm going to be sharing with you today also involves live presentation. But we know, thanks to COVID-19, how our lives have been essentially resigned to being in front of screens. I wish I was in the Jeffrey Chia Hall today, welcoming all of you and engaging with you in person. So there's also elements where, today interviews to universities are being done on Zoom. So there are some nuances that perhaps we have to consider with our new normal communication. But for the most part, it's essentially going to be about giving a live presentation, whether it's virtually or in person. So first of all, I guess my question is, and maybe to engage all of you, why do you think it's so important to communicate effectively? And I think now let's maybe ask the question, why do you need to communicate effectively orally? Can I get the students to maybe share, their thoughts, why they think communicating verbally is really important beyond being able to write and communicate. Yep, Gum, very good to express myself and my opinion. And so why is it really important for you to express your opinion or yourself, Wazy, or your idea? Great. So to avoid misunderstanding, you want to make sure that the opinion or message is correct. Wow, you guys are so sophisticated.
Sorry, Prof. Abi, you may need to minimize your chat box because it seems that there's a black box over there.
Oh, really? Okay, but
yeah. All right.
But I can't see the chat then.
Yeah, I'll be here to assist you. Okay. Anne actually says, Jack actually says avoid miscommunication. And then Yihan says promote mutual understanding.
Yep.
Yes.
Very good. Exactly. So, and ultimately, right, you will realize that, let me see, okay. Being able to communicate verbally, because it's real time, you know that people are hearing you. It's really a great opportunity to give as well as to get what you want. And I think that's really important. And of course, the more what you want is what other people want, you'll find that more people will listen to you over time. So, Daniel obviously is the better looking one. So I thought, it's always good to engage people with using baby photographs. And I think I was, at least on a superficial standpoint at my prime. So that's me 42 years ago. But when I look at myself, I'm really jealous, right? So apart from, having all that potential, but why I'm jealous with babies essentially is because don't you think it's really annoying that a baby just needs to cry and then everyone starts fussing like, oh my God, he's hungry. Oh my God, he's sleepy. Oh my God, he needs this, whatever it is, without even saying anything. But as you grow older, right? And so this is me, 1 year old with my parents. They start realizing like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I don't always get what I want. I need to start, making some concessions or transactions. But at this age, you are still very lucky too. Your parents are always thinking about what they need, and contribute. And as they grow older, so these are my 2 kids. So my kids send me, a photograph every day. They get their grandmother to take a photograph to show that they have spent their 2 hours in the morning doing their work, because they know that there's going to be, some reward for that. And that's my son trying to play with my emotional strings. And obviously it's tied to my purse strings as well. And he's very smart to make me look a little slim there. So I'm obviously going to, be kinder to him. But you can start seeing that as you grow older, and I'm probably sounding quite cynical here, but you start realizing that how you communicate, how you convey messages, you begin to start, expecting something in return. And of course, I'm sure many of you are at this stage, and I can remember my teenage years too, where you're like, oh my God, nobody understands me, right? But that's the reality. Guess what? At least at this stage of your life, your parents still want to understand, even if they don't understand you. But as you grow older, trust me, nobody's going to care about you unless you tell them what you want. And what's worse is, when I was growing up in Kuantan, essentially the people that I communicated to and I was exposed to were pretty much people that I knew, and there was always context. But today, all of you are bombarded with all kinds of communications from social media, as well as various different other types of modes of communication where you don't even know the person behind that, right? And you've heard about so many celebrity influencers who turn out to be fake. And then, as Daniel had alluded to, the problem of keyboard warriors as well, right? And sometimes you're like, I just want to punch the screen, and just, move away, because really, even when I try to communicate, I cannot get through to people. And really, sometimes we think that our communication piece, right? Even though, as Tracy mentioned, I took part in a competition and I won, but for me, that competition may have opened some doors and provided me with some level of publicity, but ultimately, the value of communication is certainly beyond, winning a competition or gaining some attraction. When I look back at my career, I've also realized that communication is at every step of my career has been essential. Even my day-to-day interactions with my subordinates, or my colleagues, or my peers, or my students, it requires that communication skills. And I'm sure many of you in a couple of years' time, or maybe even very soon, will be having to write personal statements. And recently I was featured in Nature, which is a magazine and journal, about how to actually write a personal statement, and how you essentially sell yourself, and including your science, because that's what I do. And it's the perceived reality of your value is what people buy, rather than maybe your actual value. And that's a reality that all of you, I think, have recognized, which is why you have joined the English language event today. So really, it's about recognizing that communication can help me get what I want. But do you know what you want? And I think a lot of Asian families, and I think we are all very filial children, and a part of that is also hiding our individual identity to fit into, what our neighbors say, or what does uncle or auntie say. You'll find that it's a very common thing, I think, in our Malaysian culture. Whenever I ask Daniel, like, hey, what shall we have for lunch? Anything lah, cincai lah, right? But don't you think it's really quite funny that when you decide, okay, let's go and eat this, then he will say, oh, but maybe not that. So one of the things that perhaps you can think about is, if you still don't know what you want, ask yourself, what is it that you don't want? And maybe from there, you can really begin to understand what is it that you actually want. And effective communication is key in championing this purpose, right? And this is where you change from just what I want now, like I need an iPhone, or I need to go for this BTS concert, to something a little bigger, an ambition, the reason of your existence, the vision that you want to create, right? So all of these come together when you know what your purpose is. And knowing what your purpose really helps that. And it's part about knowing who you are, right? What is the brand, right? So when we hear, about this person, right? Like today, after this, right? You'll know, when you hear about Daniel, you go, all right, he's this amazing, writer, intellectual, cat-loving, celebrity, right? And you associate those qualities. And when you think about the biggest brands that you actually recognize, like, how many of you say toothpaste instead, or you actually say Colgate instead of toothpaste, right? And how today's, things like Starbucks or Coke or Barbie or Nivea or, Apple, they all are synonymous with immediate imageries of what, these brands are associated with. So for example, if I were to say BTS, right? Many of you will go and I'm sure think about the Korean band, right? But TBS, or which the biggest terminal Bersepadu Selatan, right? It's called BTS because it's Bandar Tasik Selatan, and that's what really, is a really critical, I guess, communication and transportation hub in the country. But when I say BTS, I'm sure this is the only BTS that matters in your life, right? And that's something that you have to realize. You don't have to have a billion fans, but you certainly need to think about the people that matter, whether they will actually remember you. And realizing that you are your own brand. It's not the clothes that you wear. It's not about how rich you are, but it's what you bring. And so finding your purpose is extremely important. In my case, I was really lucky that very quickly, thanks to some mentors in my life, I became very interested in understanding why is it that cancer cells divide a lot faster than normal cells and then become that big problem that we know it is. And we have been able to identify specific genetic changes. And ultimately, my goal is to ensure that people are treated in a more precise fashion that increases the outcome. But over time, I've also realized that it's not just about trying to find new types of therapies, but it's also to think about the public science policy. And the whole COVID-19 pandemic has told us that science will help us to maybe enable a future that we want, but there are so many other competing factors that also need to be put in place. And amongst that is your public acceptance as well as your policy expediency. And so that's become my purpose in doing what I do on a daily basis. And one of them includes how we need to fight this whole alternative facts, post-truth era, which has certainly been way more a problem because of our COVID-19 pandemic. And I think you would have noticed some of the things that I have done. I'm not as prolific as Daniel is in terms of writing, but I have been writing quite a bit about the understanding of what genetics is and what its implications are, including the limitations. And of course, during the pandemic, being involved in a lot of different questions on misconceptions. And currently, I co-chair a US ASEAN study on understanding how might we address inaccurate and misleading information. And that's the kind of, I'm giving you an insight of how not only is science communication important in my daily work to realize my function, it's communication has also become the reason why my career has grown over time. So I'm going to share with you some tips for effective communication, and that's why you asked me to come today, and you probably joined this morning. And you probably are wondering, like, why have I been talking about purpose so much, right? And that's because I truly believe that before you can even learn and want to know all the right things to say, you have to make sure that you have the right attitude towards communication and towards communicating something that is meaningful. And so that's about being a champion. Being able to champion something that people are willing to listen and believe in that piece that you are communicating. And once you understand that, we will then go towards the method of preparing before a presentation. And this presentation can be anything from the interview that you're going to go for, a university, or even when you try and make a case to get what you want from your parents, or even when you decide, oh, that girl or guy is cute and I want to date. All of these require some level of preparation. And of course, then what are the considerations and where attitude and the method come together when you actually put it in practice? So the first part, being a champion. And I really mean this when I say being a champion, it's not about being better than others, but being better for others, championing a particular purpose. The first thing, and I always tell people, right? I mean, I'm not the best looking one. I'm not the smartest one. I also am not necessarily the most talented one. But I've seemed to be able to get quite a lot of things that I've wanted. And part of that is the fact that I've been lucky to be in that position to seize these opportunities. And that's what luck is. And I think many of you will probably see your friends, oh my God, he's so lucky, right? And that's because they were able to seize that opportunity when it arrives. And my mantra, and I want all of you to do this, and that's part of communicating to your own brain and to your own self. And this element of positivity, which is embrace any opportunities that come your way. And that's by saying yes first and then fear later. And appreciate that failures will happen. There's so many failures. In fact, I think I can list down the number of my own failures, and the list will be way longer than what I perceived are my successes. But one thing I know for sure, that I wouldn't be sitting in front of you today if I did not say yes first. And this includes never being able to say no to Margaret or Tracy or Naomi or Miss Wong Lele. It's so important to realize that by saying yes first, it's opened doors of opportunities for myself. When I think about, so at some point I even rode while I was at Cambridge, lulling my opponents to a true sense of security. And when I think about the experiences that I've gotten, I've traveled to more than 30 countries, all paid for, and communicated to many countries where English isn't a native language, but the emotions and the connections that you can actually have with individuals, and including, I think about 5 years ago, these Thai boys in the National Museum of Thailand taught me how to dab. And every time I do that, my 4-year-old son thinks I'm extremely cool, which may only last for maybe another year or so. But the key point here is, because I said yes to doing things, I've been able to communicate my purpose, and then people begin to see the value that I create. And yes, it's extremely scary, right? When you think about putting yourself out of the zone of comfort, putting yourself out there where there are going to be people who will judge you, including, I'm aware some of you will go today like, oh my God, this is the world's best science communicator and he speaks like this. The reality is that, you are certainly not alone. And the reason is because even in a country like America, you'll see that public speaking is not only, amongst the top highest, thing that people are scared about, but also more than 50% of them are scared. So how do they overcome that? I was also really scared today. I was like, oh, it's going to be this morning. I'm going to follow that amazing Daniel. What are the students going to think about me? So how much effort, I have to put in to think about this. But all of that created that adrenaline, created that extra effort that I hope that you will appreciate at the end of the day. And how do you fix this fear? First of all, you start with things that you can change. One of the things that I always wear is a tie, and people think it's because I'm very stylish, but that's not true. The only reason why I wear a tie is because you can't see my popping buttons, and it makes me less, more secure than if I wasn't wearing a tie. I'm told that wearing a jacket frames my body so that it looks like I'm actually slimmer than I am. And it gives me that confidence that I feel strong and powerful. So there are many things that you can really fix, including getting a better webcam, right? That gives you better definition. But having said that, there are many things that you can't change, right? And you have to embrace those fears and insecurities as part of who you are. Because one of the things that we are starting to appreciate more, right, is not about who ticks all the boxes, but who connects and relates to the cause that you want to champion. So although I'm going to be sharing with you some methods, and Daniel himself has shared some methods already today, you must understand that all of you are not cookies, and today is certainly not a baking show to tell you how to create the most perfect looking biscuits and best tasting biscuits. It's about creating the best unique you and you realizing your own abilities. So it's not about you trying to be smooth like butter or being hotter than summer, but it's about you being extremely comfortable with who you are, and you can still be extremely cool, popular, and being relevant, right? Look at Psy. He obviously wouldn't cut it for BTS, but he has created his own niche that attracts and resonates to billions of people. So don't wait for people to recognize you, recognize yourself. And I think it's really important for all of you. The slide that I showed about how today the keyboard warriors and how frustrating it is when people critique you. It is really important to understand that there is something called the imposter syndrome. And a lot of times, looking at this Venn diagram here, you will realize that a lot of times we feel we are a lot smaller than we actually are because we are unable to internalize our own abilities. We are not able to realize that, okay, maybe somebody sounds more sophisticated. Oh my God, Prof. Abi knows so much about science. I'm like, yeah, because I've learned, at least 20 years more about science than you have, right? So it is really important for you to think about what is it that you have achieved within your own limitations and constraints and resources, and to manage those expectations. Because the reality is, when you take the totality of it, and as Daniel talked about, Prof. Elizabeth's very strong conviction that everyone's got different types of intelligence, and it's really not about measuring it in one way. And realizing that all of us know something that is different. And in the context of communication, your most effective communication happens when you are speaking in the areas where you overlap. And then you stretch and move the conversation a little outside of that zone of comfort. And that's when you learn new experiences and grow what you know and what other people know. But it's equally important to make sure that you don't think that you can do more than you can actually do. And one thing I say, that we really need to do better in our Asian communities and even in Malaysia, is you got to recognize our own abilities. I like that Daniel's questions that he actually asked you all, and you got most of it right. But one that was polarizing was Malaysians' performance compared to other countries with regards to its vaccination at the current state. And that's because sometimes we are so good at complaining, we forget to recognize things that are positive, recognize efforts for what that effort is. Because the more you recognize other people, the less you criticize and think lowly about other people, what you will realize over time is that you begin to recognize yourself a lot better. You begin to not rely on other people recognizing you because you have learned to recognize yourself. Now, quick question. Superman, do you think he's a confident guy?
Okay. Yes, Junhei answers yes. Anyone else?
All right, so good. So why do you think he's confident?
Yes.
Why do you think he's confident?
Sorry, just a quick check, Prof. Abi. Can you see the chat box?
I can't, because as soon as I open the chat box, then you tell me that there's a black screen, right?
Yeah, correct.
You just tell me the answer.
Okay, so Yi Han actually answers, yes, he certainly is, since he's comfortable wearing his underwear outside his tent.
Absolutely, right? Look at him. I mean, he's fit, he's good looking, but you're absolutely right. Brilliant. If somebody can wear their underwear outside their trousers, you need to be very, very confident. Or wearing lycra, and trust me, lycra doesn't hide much, right? And look at the amazing Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman, right? She even looks even more confident and cooler than Superman. One of the things that you can get out of these is you will notice that part of projecting confidence is not actually wearing your underwear outside. So please, when you go for your interviews, don't wear your underwear outside, okay? I can guarantee that's one way of rejection. But it's the physical outward projection that also is really important. All right, who's this guy with this sunglasses? Anyone wants to guess?
Let's see. Anyone? Jimmy Choo, yes.
Wow, very good. You guys are very, 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 conscious and socially conscious about, things and socially aware. Sorry, not even conscious. So Jimmy Choo. So for those who don't know, is a very famous shoemaker and become a huge businessman. And I got to meet him about 4 years ago at a British Alumni Awards. And he was talking about how, he doesn't have a university degree, and here he was the guest speaker. And one of the interesting things was, he talked about, his superposing, and that's his Wong Fei Hong, once upon a time in China, Kung Fu pose. And of course, when I do it, it's neither crouching nor hidden, but it's important to appreciate that confidence is very infectious. And there is this study that, came out about 10 years ago. And although it's been challenged, but recent studies have shown that it's actually true, that there's something called power posing, where brief nonverbal displays of how you act can actually change the levels of your hormones, which ultimately change your behavior. And so our bodies can change our mind, and these minds can then change our behavior, and ultimately our behavior can also change our outcomes. Isn't that amazing? And they found that by standing like a superhero for as little as 2 minutes can increase your testosterone and reduce the stress hormones called cortisol. And you find that these individuals perform better at interviews and are able to cope with stressful conditions better. So you can literally cheat your mind, which ultimately creates, a completely different outcome. And so what are examples of, power poses? And especially in communication, it's really important. So a high power pose, right, essentially involves basically standing with a wide stance, your arms raised in a V, and you can see that, right, when Usain Bolt or all these winners finish in Olympics, they run, they have their arms up like I'm the master of the universe, or hands on the hips. So essentially, open poses are considered to be high power poses. Low power poses are usually ones where you are slightly closed. So for example, unless you are a cover girl or trying to brand a watch, sitting and at an interview or when you're talking to people like, yeah, I'm, very, very good in certain things, doesn't give people confidence, because it's seen as, oh, what's she trying to cover up? Why is she being very protective, right? Or putting your hands in your pocket are also examples of not about being rude, but that you are closed and not wanting to, engage with individuals. So first part of preparing is about being a champion, projecting confidence, say yes first, fear later, and recognize your own ability. So like Beyonce, right? Again, not the best singer, but when you think about the whole package, she's Sasha Fierce, probably lost in your pop reference. Next, we go to preparation before a presentation. And the first thing I think for me, when I was actually being trained in science communication, this was a wow moment when my coach taught me that it's not about what you want to say. Think about what the audience wants to say. And this includes thinking about who you are speaking to. And this requires you to, before even curating your communication piece, to ask yourself, who am I talking to? And for someone like me, my receiver, right, is always going to be different, because sometimes it's my fellow scientists, sometimes it's my students, sometimes it's the policymakers, right? And so the message has to be changed. The medium also changes. So let's do a very quick quiz here. So let's think about this group of individuals on the left and the choices that they might make in terms of their beverages. So the first group are these young kids like yourself, you know, vibrant and so energetic, so, and cool. So which type of beverage do you think they're going to choose?
Oh, the bees are coming in.
Very good. All right. What about this annoyingly fit YouTube, Instagram people? What do you think they're going to be drinking?
And you have all the C's.
That's right. Ugh. All right. And what about these uncles and aunties so smiley and happy? What do you think they're going to have?
They're drinking hot tea. Yeah.
That's right. Although some of them probably are happy because they also got a happy meal, and of course the kids a happy meal. So although you can't generalize, because obviously, for example, I fight with my children whenever they order happy meals. The reality is that you can, to a certain extent, make some levels of generalization that will actually help you to identify how to pitch your particular communication. Because communication is not about, I'm going to tell them what I want to say, but it's about entertaining and engaging individuals that are listening, right? You want them to go, wow, right? So imagine if you were in a room, or, in the case of this Zoom, I can't see you, but I'm just hoping that none of you are looking like this, but you're going like, oh my God, this is potentially very interesting. Or you hopefully are thinking, oh, maybe your lunchtime is coming soon. I don't know. But making sure that the participants and audience engage is really important. And if there was one mantra that I would say is the most important, it's not about what you say, it is about what they hear or what they want to hear. And so these are some of the questions that you should ask before you even write your communication piece. Who are my audiences? Why are they here? What do they know? What do they think they know? What do they want to hear? What do they care about? And what will they respond to? And this includes the jokes that you're going to create, the cultural references that you're going to make are all very important to internalize who they are. And you can only do this by really understanding what that person feels. And this means seeing with the eyes of another, listening with the ears of another, and finally feeling with the heart of another. So you've got to put yourself in their shoes. And I don't mean just this kind of shoes, because too long, the world and the way we perceive the world to be has been dominated by individuals who wear this kind of shoes. We've got to put ourselves into other people, other viewpoints, right? And this includes the gender differences, right? I'm not suggesting, guys, that you wear red stilettos and go out tonight, but I'm suggesting you try and understand the lived experiences and expectations of women. Also, different age groups, including yourself, asking, how can today's talk benefit you? And so the three questions I always ask are, what is it that people want to hear or see from me? What are their expectations? And finally, equally important, the image you think you need to project. And once you know your audience and you know what that answers to those questions, then you focus on the 3 C's: clarity, content, and charisma. And when you talk about clarity and content, I like the fact that Daniel talked about the importance of the story. And you heard the examples that he gave were brilliant, right? Because they help you to understand the context of what that message was all about. The difference between a written and now you're talking about the oral communication is that the storyteller now, his charisma now is also being measured in telling of that story. So it's a combination of what you say as well as how you say it. All right, next question. What is your favorite story or movie?
Now let's see what are the responses in the chat box.
And I'm going to ask you after that, why it's your favorite movie?
No response yet, guys. Okay, Penthouse, Titanic. Oh, wow.
Titanic, really?
Yeah.
All right, so why do you like Titanic? Whoever that suggested Titanic. Because Leonardo DiCaprio, very cute.
Life of Pi.
Life of Pi, very good.
Yeah, Conjuring, Annabelle. Wow, okay, that's The Nun. Ooh.
Wow. Quite old school. I was expecting, newer movies that I have not seen a movie like forever. So
Cheers, that's one. And then there's one answer, Teletubbies. Well, and let's see. Okay, that's Sherlock Holmes.
all right. My next question is, why is it that it's your favorite movie?
Yeah.
Can anyone share?
Okay, Carol shares that Titanic is a very good love story that touched me a lot.
Aww.
Okay, let's
one more.
See.
Anyone else?
Let's see. There's one that says the story of Yang Palace. That's probably a Chinese film. Okay, let's see. The character in the series, Ishwari shared that, the character in the series. So what movie is that, Ishwari? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, so it's clearly the characters, right? So she obviously resonates with the characters.
Yeah, Lee Wen actually answered, I resonated with the protagonist a lot.
Ah, okay, very good.
Okay.
So one of the important things that I think I got from just hearing it is resonating, right? And when you are communicating, it's the same thing. You have to ask yourself, what is the point before your audience asks the question, hiya, what is the point? I just wasted my 40 minutes listening to Prof. Abi. So it's really important, right? Even though storytelling is important, you got to make sure that your story is built upon a point that you are going to be making. Likewise, you will also realize that a point will truly resonate when a story is told. And there are many studies out there that show that, when you read fiction, for example, so if any of your parents tell you reading fiction is actually a waste of time, tell them, no. There's a lot of data that actually shows that even reading fiction actually helps in the creativity, right, and ideation and innovation for even factual stuff. For example, in terms of science ideas, fiction also helps you to grow that ability to be empathetic. And why a couple of you, Lee Wen, you talked about character-driven story, you resonate. In fact, they actually say that the brain, when it resonates with particular characters that you read or you see, there's a particular hormone called the oxytocin, which is one that's important for connection, but also for delivering babies. So just make sure that, when you're about to deliver, and your near-term pregnancy, don't watch movies that you will resonate. You don't want too much of that hormone expression. But what is important here is that the stories help to actually change your biology. And that biological circuits that are changing will also change the way you behave and think and actually communicate. So we know that a good story, as Daniel said, is really critical. And you have to look at it as a story. Even if it's an interview, it's my life story that I'm going to share with you. I have a very simple structure, which is very similar to what Daniel shared. But because I love food, so everything connects to some food. I always say that, like the intro, I break it into two. So that's the only difference. In communication standpoint, because people can just switch off very quickly, or now everyone's got a phone, or if you're on YouTube, or even now, some of you may go like, yeah, wasting my time lah. Let me go and do other things. I just leave myself on here. People will think I'm on here. It is important to be able to hook your audience very quickly. But also one critical thing is it's important to tell people what is it that you're going to communicate. Because unlike a written article where you can reread and reread again, of course, you can argue today you can rewind and forward all these recordings. But in a live piece of communication or in an interview, you have to be systematic and be able to tell, like a menu, what is it that you can expect. And of course, then once you've given them that expectation, you got to have the dish. And of course, top it up with a good dessert. So when you talk about the hook, it's all about targeting emotions, and that's part of that storytelling, right? And it can be a short story, or I remember the time when I grew up, and like this, or I truly believe that there are certain things, or to crack a joke where then you create that really nice, casual interaction. Or you can make a strong case of why your work is really important. In the last 5 seconds, 2 people have found out that they have cancer, and 1 life has been lost from cancer. This is our battle against cancer. That's an example of a hook. I'm sorry for trying to, change your emotions, but that's an example of how you bring in the seriousness, and then people go, oh, maybe I want to listen more, right? So there's an element of provocation, shock, and surprise that's very, very critical. So you have to think about the kind of emotions that you want to target. One thing that I find really useful is to smile a lot. Smiling itself is a great hook. So if you go for interviews, you don't go like, smile and practice smiling. And it doesn't matter even if that initially is fake, you will realize it also then slowly recalibrates your mind that, okay, I can relax. But of course, if you're going to talk about cancer at the start, you don't go, in 5 seconds, 2 people just found out they have cancer and 1 life has been lost, all right? Because that's obviously really bad. So you've got to make sure that you smile, but smile appropriately. And once you have done that hook, once you've got that attention, you've got to make sure that you put it into context, because today, like I said, people will just quickly ignore if they don't see the relevance. And it's important to say, so today, this is what I'm going to be saying. Today, by the end of these few seconds, you're going to be able to learn this, and that. And certainly not by shouting, listen, 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 right? That's not going to work. And when you go to the dish, the main content, I always think keeping it simple. And there's actually, this whole science behind how we categorize information. And the power of 3 is something that allows us to be able to say, okay, there are 3 things that I'm going to share with you today. It also helps you to remember what the 3 things are, but it also helps to make sure that the individuals remember what is it that you are good at. I can be amazing with 10,000 things, but all I need to do is to sell them the 3 main things that you get by hiring me today. And this information has got to be fresh, it's got to be relatable, and it's got to be actionable. Why fresh? It's because people like things that are new, right? If it's the same old stuff, you're going to go like, seen that, done that, not interested, right? But fresh does not mean it needs to be completely new. It can be new ways to convey a really old idea, or finding contemporary examples, new data, new statistics to actually explain. But I find relatability really important, where even though when I communicate to people, I always introduce very fresh stuff. After a while, if things are too new, they go like, oh my God, what is this guy talking about? You've got to make sure that your audience understands you, because it's not about what you want to say, but what they hear. And if they don't relate to what you are trying to convey, then it's really very difficult. Not all of you are going to be doing science. Not all of you are going to decide to do some abstract art or do different kind of things. But all of you have something important to communicate. And you will realize that that something important is what we call content. But content, like water, if you pour it in a cup or teapot or a phone or a TV, it will take the shape of the container. And so it's all about context and how you actually package that, how you communicate that. And so, for example, in science, I use a lot of analogies. If I were to talk about cytotoxic B cell, T cells, and antibody producing B cells, although today I think many people are a bit more aware of these things, I will surely switch off 99% of the population. But if I give an analogy that the vaccines, they help to train our immune system to defend and protect, just like how the armed forces defend the nation from enemies, people can then conjure, oh, it's true, I need to get vaccinated, because it's not about me understanding how the vaccine works, but it's me appreciating that we are not safe until everybody is safe, right? So it's the same thing with anything that you're going to be talking about. Think about how you can relate that to a specific context that can be applicable in different people's contexts, so that they can then understand where you're coming from. And finally, it's got to be actionable. It's got to be useful, because today, again, we live in a world which is, what is in it for me? Or as many of us here, so what? So what? I heard all of these from you. How is this going to be applicable to me? So that's exactly why you need to think about your audience. How can these pieces of information that I'm sharing today can be used by you in your future? So you got to tell, all right, so I could use this piece when I'm doing my interviews, or when I'm actually applying for a job, or when I'm writing my specific personal statement. And that's why Mr. Daniel today gave you so many different types of examples, because by trying, you can then appreciate the nuances that might be lost if it was just a talk. And finally, much like a writing piece, you got to have a dessert. And every good story has a great ending. For me, because a lot of times when I communicate, I'm giving them factual stuff, I find finishing my ending by saying, these are the 3 things that you got to think about, which relates to the dish. And it's always critical to try and connect that opening, because like a good story, right? You can have the most brilliant, story start, and you're watching it for 2.5 hours. Can you imagine how you would feel if you didn't know whether Leonardo DiCaprio died? Right? You'll go like, oh, this is so frustrating, right? Because we all need to have some closure, or we need to be stimulated to think about, but did he die? So it's really important to also pay attention to that ending. But ultimately, you have your intro, you have your hook, you have your dish, you have your dessert. It's got to flow. And one thing that I find in very effective communication pieces It's not about having like a very fixed script. It's about knowing where your destination is, knowing that you've engaged your audience. Now, how can I take them through a journey? Like a little frog jumping from one lily pad to another lily pad and ultimately reaching the destination that you want. So I generally have a visual memory of a script of where I want to go, but not necessarily a specific destination. And then choosing of words. So it's the same advice. Avoid complicated words and jargons that most people don't understand, because if they don't understand, what's the point in even communicating? No one goes, oh, wow, he knows these big words. And certainly, if you can't pronounce it, look for a substitute. And I always use, the various different functions now. You don't even need to know your phonetics anymore. All you need to just type how to pronounce this word, and you should be able to get that information. And use short sentences and punctuate, because people don't have very long attention span. Keeping it simple versus keeping it complicated, because it's what they hear. And I love this Albert Einstein quote, because a lot of times we have all these sophisticated ideas, but if you are unable to explain it to the lay person, you'll find that you actually don't really understand this. And this includes my own science. Even when sometimes my mom or my wife asks me specific questions and I want to explain, and I go, oh my God, I just realized I don't really understand that concept as well as I thought I did. And so it's the same thing with you. Making sure that different people can understand you is a way to know that you truly understand that subject matter. And in the context of body language, first impressions are always very critical. So even today, I could have just said, EMCO, I'm just going to just wear my t-shirt. But it's really important to make that effort, because making that effort tells you that all of you today matter to me, even though I probably won't see you in person, but still it matters to me what that impressions are. Another important thing is also neutrality. So in terms of, being there, remember, you don't want to be remembered for your color of your hair or, your extremely stylishness. You want to be remembered for your purpose, your amazing qualities that, essentially that communication piece was all about. So neutrality is also very safe in terms of that, so that it's not too flashy. I sometimes have a beard on, but whenever I do communication pieces, I remove it, because as my communication coach taught me, that when I don't have my beard on, and I don't grow my beard, nobody is talking about my lack of beard. But if I have a beard, half of them will go, oh my God, he looks like George Clooney. And other half will be like, oh my God, he couldn't even be bothered to shave his beard. And suddenly everyone's talking about my beard, not listening to the piece that I'm actually talking about. So it's very important to think about neutrality. And finally, really being comfortable and being yourself. So there are quite a bit of examples that I wanted to show you in terms of nonverbal communication. I'm not sure whether you can see me here now. I just want to make sure that, let me just stop share for a while. I just want
to... Just to remind you, we will to end real soon.
Okay, yeah, it's finishing already. Don't worry.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, so basically, really important. Let me just get this out here. Okay.
All right.
So you can see my full face, right? And one second. I shouldn't have done this. Why is this coming out as? Okay, you can see this, right? So generally for postures, right? If you're going to stand in a crowd, or just generally keeping yourself comfortable, remember, so keeping out, you jump and where you land, so you're pretty open. Hand gestures are open. Eye contact, looking very directly, and usually keeping 3 seconds. You don't stare too much. Expressions obviously have to be appropriate, and you move according to the points that you want to make. rather than walking too much because it becomes too distracted, right? So it's really important to keep that very open mind. Open mind because you got to make sure that you are present. When you are connecting, you got to make sure that you are here, now, and just being yourself. And this includes doing exercise, and this is the only exercises that I do. So it's about being ready, right? And I think many people feel like, how do I start talking? Well, I always say, do mouth exercises. And this means, I'll teach you a few exercises today. So I want all of you to try this, okay? So we start with the lips exercise. So lip exercise goes, mwah. Okay, and then after that, right, you'll find that your lips now are all really warmed up. Now let's move some tongue exercises. La 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 la. I hope you're all doing it rather than laughing at me, all right? La 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 la. All right, and then the other exercise which I find best and then really wakes your tongue up is and lastly, your throat and essentially your whole vocal cords. You do this, E-O, and you go up and down. E-O, E-O, E. And once you have done that a couple of times, I can guarantee you that any word will be easy to answer and talk and speak, and you won't actually have that hesitance. My final note is less is more, but trust me, more is more. And only you will know how to balance it. But all of this requires practice. And just do it. Anytime you have an opportunity to speak, speak, because it's say yes first and then fear later. And during the presentation, I always say, think about not how I want to speak like Daniel or Prof. Abi or some celebrities, but just think about how I can do better than I was yesterday. Don't think about competitions, think about how I can improve. Because for example, if you were to compare yourself with worldwide handsome, there's no way you're always going to look like, oh my God. So it's important for you to say, I'm going to look at my own mirror because that's my only competition. Because what's the worst thing that can happen? You go viral, but you'll soon be forgotten anyway. When you look at the various different videos I've done for COVID-19, so many of these anti-vaxxers and other people, when you look at my, some of the comments, blah, 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 rubbish, test, scapegoats, all diplomatic talk only. The journalists should learn how to pronounce Malaysia better, all kinds of stuff. And if I were to think about these and go, oh my God, I'll never do this again. But I know that all of us, and that includes you, have a purpose that can be a source of inspiration and influence. For every bad comment that I have by some random nobody that I don't know, not a nobody, but somebody I don't know, I get this kind of messages. Thank you so much, Prof. My sister has agreed to register for vaccination after hearing you speak. Or I also get this kind of messages. I'm so proud to see a local Kuantan boy. Now my children, when they see you, they also believe that if you can do it, they can too, right? I don't know whether that's a huge compliment, but if the fact that I can create hope for people, that's really powerful. And because I really champion science, I also get excited when I see things like, thank you for making my parents realize that there's more to being a doctor or lawyer. I want to make vaccines to combat future pandemics. And so it's this kind of impact that you create that makes you realize that what you have to communicate can truly create that purpose. And that is why when you're communicating, we didn't have time to talk about this. It's also equally important to think about the ethics and integrity of what you write and what you communicate, what you need to champion, especially when there's so many inequalities there. And when I think about the opportunities that I've been allowed to, and in some way, as Daniel mentioned, our amazing boss, Prof. Lee, and talking about how we can create equity in education and excellence and changing lives. I'm lucky that I've been able to do this. Tracy, I'm going to get everyone to be involved in this exercise. I promise you only for 1 minute.
Okay.
I want all of you to close your eyes. Please close your eyes and really think about this last 2 hours or so that you have actually been involved in. And really think about how amazing you all are that you have chosen to come and join us today on a Saturday morning when you probably have a lot of things to do or maybe just sleep. To realize that actually you have this vision that you really want to be influential, either through your writing, through your communication, or anything that you choose to do. There's always room to improve, but there's also room to realize how fabulous you are. And I want you to stand up now, okay? And do your power pose in 1, 2, 3. Remember, keeping it open. Everyone can be Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, Chichak Man, whatever you want to do. And I want you to truly embrace this, okay? I want you to close your eyes. And when I say 1, 2, 3, power pose, and follow what I'm going to say. All right, so power pose. 1, 2, 3. And follow after me. I am fabulous. And I am proud of who I am and who I want to be. Think about your dreams. Think about your ambition. I am fabulous. My voice is powerful. My voice is important. My voice has purpose. Yeah! So guys, thank you so much for the opportunity today. And I hope that you understand that communication is not just about a technique, but it's about embracing that attitude and knowing what your purpose, and together celebrating that emergence. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Prof. Abi. Okay, due to time constraint, okay, guys, so let's move on to our Slido platform. So Naomi, can you please share the Slido? Okay, let's just pick one question, shall we, Prof. Abi?
I'm so sorry, I got too excited. I didn't realize the time.
It's okay. So let's look at that one. The first question, okay, which is also our last question. Okay, I can speak somewhat fluent English at home, but when I give presentations in class, I always stutter. So are there any effective ways to improve this? So Prof. Abi?
Sure. So I think it's fear that's actually causing, because you do say that you have the ability to speak fluently at home. So my advice to you is to try and work around that fear. And there are 2 ways to do that. One is to psych yourself. So try and do this 2 minutes of power pose. Do it in your school toilet or whatever it is before you go for your presentation, right? Spend that 2 minutes believing that your mind can trick yourself, right? Your body can trick your mind even. So that's number one. The second one is practice, practice, practice. Do this as many times as possible, and you'll realize that you will certainly be able to improve. And this really means when you talk about improve, right? Don't think about improving from 0 to 100 straight away. All you need to do is improve from 0 to 0.01. And as long as you're continuously improving from 0.0.01 every time, it will certainly improve. And this includes the speed of speaking, of ideas coming out. The reason why I'm able to answer these questions quickly is because I've been thinking about this. I've received questions like this before. And so over time, these things come in my mind. And I think about it even at sleep. I think about what are potential questions that you might actually ask me. And so you always think about it. You always think. And I would say, go onto YouTube. There's so many TEDx out there that talk about different communication tools, and just put yourself out there, right? And do not worry about critiques. Just worry about putting yourself out there and trying and just being that better version of yourself.
Okay, yay, thank you very much. So guys, we understand that you do have a lot of questions you wish to ask Prof. Abi.
I'm so sorry. Oh my God.
Apologies, yes, due to time constraint, you may actually email him via, so there will be an email address posted in the chat box. So you can email Prof. Abi. Yes, okay, so thank you so much, Prof. Abi, for the very insightful session on how to communicate effectively. All right, thank you very much, guys. So yes, okay, moving on to my session. I will share my screen now.